Hello, I'm Steven,
And I'm Aaron.
and we've just seen
Final
Final Destination,
Destination,
Bloodlines, new film that's out in theaters right now, starring Caitlin Santajuana and Raya Kilstead, and it is directed by Zach Lipovsky and Adam Stein. So, Final Destination, Bloodlines. This is the sixth installment, I believe, and this is a series first for me because I've not seen one of these films.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen at least four of them. Maybe I've seen all of them, but at least three or four.
So, yeah, I've never seen one, but I do know what the series is about and what each installment entails. Basically, it's just a series of creative death scenes, and that's really all it is.
It's just a Rube Goldberg machine of death. You got your core cast of characters, and then you've got the big death scene where everybody perishes in the opening, and then we'll flash back to before it all happened, and then we'll save the day, and then death starts to slowly come for everybody, and we have to try to avoid death and figure out where he's coming and how he's coming.
Yeah, this film opens in the 1960s where this woman, Iris, and her fiance go to this incredibly fake looking high rise restaurant at the top of a tower, and everything goes wrong, and the whole thing comes collapsing down. But it turns out to be a premonition that this lady, Iris, has that everything's going to go wrong, and she takes the necessary steps to prevent this from happening. So she saves everyone in the building who was meant to die. But because death was supposed to come for every single person in that building, and his plan has been thwarted, all of those people who were supposed to die reproduced and had descendants, and now death is trying to play catch up for years, taking out every single member of those people's bloodlines, which brings us to the present, where the granddaughter of this lady Iris in the 60s, this girl named Stephanie Reyes, she has become wise to death's plan to slowly take out every member of these people's bloodlines, and she has to try to avoid death.
Try to save her family.
Yeah, correct. So, I didn't really like this.
Okay, I did like this one, and I think it's for a particular reason. From my memory, the series has always kind of taken itself kind of seriously and treated itself like it's, a serious horror movie. And it's always been kind of drab and dull. Exciting in parts, but mostly it's just the characters and actors are treating this very, very seriously. But this is the first one that I can remember where it feels like it's very tongue-in-cheek on purpose, that it's very self-aware, it's poking fun at itself constantly, and it feels like it's having fun with the concept rather than trying to make a scary horror movie.
Yeah, this is where I slightly disagree. There was a 15-minute stretch of this film where I did like it, because it did seem like it was making fun of itself, and it was basically saying, we know this is absurd, so we're just going to make fun of ourselves.
Is it the hospital sequence, or is it the...
From the garbage truck scene, which is the funniest scene in the movie and one of the funniest things I've seen all year,
Yeah.
through the hospital scene, it felt like it was making fun of itself and having a laugh, and I was on board. And then it just felt like it fell back into its old bag of tricks.
Yeah.
And just became another Final Destination film. So really, the first 2.5 acts of this movie, and then the third act, which is terrible, is just Final Destination Trek with a 15-minute stretch of fun.
Well, okay, I kind of sort of agree, but not to that extent. I think probably the first like 2/3 of this movie are like pretty entertaining, and they've got that wacky comedic kind of sense of humor to it. But it's really when they try to wrap everything up in the end and the climax and bring it back to like a few characters and make it about the family and saving the family that it gets a little melodramatic and it gets a little too serious. But the other thing I think that really works about this movie that I don't really remember being as prominent in the other movies is that this movie is constantly swerving the audience. They make you think that one thing is going to happen and then they completely subvert it. Or you think maybe this guy is next on the list of death, but then, oh, no, there's like a secret that's revealed that's like a really funny way of kind of subverting series tropes that we're kind of used to.
Yeah, this is true. There are a few moments where they did fool me. I thought they were going to do one thing and then they turned it on its head and did something else. So it does have that going for it.
Yeah, this is like the most playful iteration of the series that I can remember, and I think it's all the better for it. It's more colorful, I think, too, than the other movies. It just seems like it's having a lot of fun with the ridiculous concept and the contraptions and the way death manifests itself and unleashes itself on these poor people. So to me, it was a lot of fun for most of the movie until it kind of got a little too serious in the end again.
And it also is the final performance of Tony Todd as this character who has appeared in like 4 other installments in this series.
Yeah.
And he looked gaunt and sickly. And his dialogue suggested that the actor knew he was on his way out the door,
Yeah.
and that the writers probably knew as well. So I looked it up, and sure enough, when Tony Todd signed on to be in this film, he said, secretly, I'm dying, and I would like the dialogue of this character to reflect that this is my last go-around here, and my final hoorah.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty evident based on his appearance and the words that he was actually speaking. I think given the context of the series and given his history with the series, that scene actually worked for me. I thought it was rather poignant, but it's also kind of a fourth wall breaking event. I just really like Tony Todd. I just like seeing him.
Yeah, I was fine with the scene. I did like that he made the dialogue so that it was my farewell, my goodbye, tip the hat to the audience,
and
have a good one.
We won't say what ultimately becomes of his character, but I think it was the right call, especially in a movie like this that is so overtly comedic and kind of laughable at times. I thought the way they handled his character and his kind of exit was well done when they could have gone for something far more tasteless.
Yeah. So one of the other issues I had with this movie, and just the premise of this series in general, is that when the movie started, I looked at all these characters and I thought to myself, every single last one of you is going to die. So there's no reason for me to care. I guarantee everyone is dead by the end of this, and if I know the outcome, what's the point?
So, yeah, that's kind of my problem with this series too, is that there's really never anything to get invested in. I think it mostly comes down to like the performances and the relationship between the characters and how they develop those and how they end up by the end of the movie. This is another one where it feels like pretty much everybody is disposable. But also, I think one of the movie's strengths is kind of the whole Bloodlines thing. They do make this about family.
Yeah.
And I do think that the cast has really good chemistry with one another, and it kind of makes the characters work, and it that idea and that theme pulls me through to the end, because I really did like especially the brothers, the 2 brothers in the family. They had the best stuff. They had the best material. They had the best back and forth.
I thought the teenagers were better actors than most of the adults.
Yes.
The adults were horrible actors.
I was wanting to bring that up. I'm glad you did. The parents, everybody playing the parents except for
Raya Kilstead.
Home Alone lady.
Yeah, Alice Ribbons from Home Alone 3.
Right. All of the adult actors except for her is absolutely awful in this movie. And I think it might be on purpose. I can't really explain why, and I don't know why they would do this, but all of the adult characters are so overplayed and so...
Especially Lawnmower Dad.
Yeah, they're so upbeat and they're so, like, not human.
What, like Stepford Wives?
Yeah, they feel like androids that are designed to be happy all the time. Especially the main girl's father. He might be like
just one of the worst actors I've ever seen.
Yeah, the worst actor in the movie. I did enjoy Lawnmower Dad. just because of how ridiculous his dialogue and how over the top it was delivered. The mom was also really really terrible. And then there's the crazy grandma who lives in
A cabin.
a cabin, which is also a death trap.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. This frickin' cabin.
She lives in the most dangerous house in the world, but we're supposed to believe that this is the safest place that you could be.
Exactly. That's the whole premise of the third act. We got to get somebody back to this cabin because it's a safe haven. Only it's literally surrounded by hazards. There's a fence that has spikes pointing outwards, and it's a fence, so it's all metal and sharp edges anyway.
The
and
house is covered in spikes.
Yeah, and we find out that there are hazards inside the house as well.
Yep.
And so the whole premise of that climax makes no sense. We got to get this person into this cabin. Oh, wouldn't you know it? We ran into a hazard.
Yeah. As soon as we get the kind of the setup in the beginning that this crazy lady, this ancestor or grandmother, whoever, is living in this safe haven that they've created for themselves, where they have studied death in every possible manner that it can show up, so much so that she has a book with drawings and like machinations of contraptions and events that can take place, like, oh, well, what if the wind blows and it knocks this thing over, which connects to this other thing, and then it shoots this thing into you and it knocks your head off, or, you know, just all manner of ridiculous things that could never be real in real life. But
when you say it, it sounds funnier than it actually plays out on screen. I wish they had just really leaned into the absurdity and really upped the satire here. Just make this Gremlins 2 the new batch of Final Destination films.
Yeah, I felt like this was them kind of leaning in that direction.
Not far enough for my liking.
But yeah, I do wish they went a little further, because the premise is so absurd and there's so much you could do with it. And the only reason the audience shows up to these things is to watch the death scenes, to see how creative and how absurd and how just out of their minds they're going to be.
Which, as evidenced by our earlier review of The Monkey, that's something I couldn't give two shits about.
Yeah, but that's... The thing with The Monkey is, like, the joke wears itself out far too early. I think this one does a better job of, one, having fewer deaths.
I did have a better time with this than I did with The Monkey.
But also, this movie subverts itself constantly and always keeps you guessing, unlike The Monkey, where it's just, like, constantly punching you in the face with ridiculous imagery.
And the Monkey also had a twist that was painfully obvious from the beginning.
Yeah, a mile coming. But yeah, crazy grandmother lady living in a death trap, which is supposedly the most safe place in the world. I liked her performance as well, but yeah, all the adults in this are just ridiculous.
Yeah, and I won't say what happens, but the final scene of this movie is terrible, and it just, to me, just made everything worthless. That was just like the final bit of salt in the wound.
Yeah, that's the thing with these movies, is the idea of death being something that is always coming for you. It's played for a joke, but it also feels like it's just like, well, what was all this for?
Yeah,
you know?
It's played for a joke and completely undermines everything that came before. All the tension, all the effort that we put through, the sense of accomplishment just flushed right down the commode.
It's a double-edged sword, because, like, on one hand, you're here just to see the wacky deaths and see what they do with the characters. And on the other hand, like, you don't really care about any of these characters at the end of the day, so it's really not that big a deal that most of them are disposable. So it's constantly like, I don't know that this is ever a series that can truly figure out how to make a great installment, but I think they finally made a good one, like a pretty good one, a decent one.
Yeah, I can't speak to that because I've not seen any of the others.
Yeah, I think this Halloween we should probably run through the series and watch them. Like I said, I think I've seen most of them. I from my memory, I feel like 2 and 3 are the best ones, just because they're the most memorable and they probably have the best actors. 3 has got Mary Elizabeth Winstead in it, so she carries that movie.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's one of her early movies.
It sounds like a film series that has kind of an interesting premise that's good for a one-off, but it made money, so then they kept doing it until it got ran right into the ground.
Exactly. But it's been away for a while, and this series has kind of achieved, legendary status at this point just because of it's been around so long and because of how absurd it is. And nobody drives down the road looking at log carrying trucks the same way anymore. And it's because of movies like this. It weirdly is one of those movies where it makes you think about kind of your environment and how certain things can react and create a chain reaction that might result in something bad. Or if you're driving down the road and you see like a little piece of something on a truck that looks like it's going to fly off, your brain starts thinking about, well, what if it flies off and crashes into this car and it does that and does this thing. And so I think the series has kind of earned its place in like a horror icon status, even though I don't really like any of the movies. I can understand the appeal, but I think this is the first one that they kind of figured out how to make it and how to keep it fresh and entertaining most of the way through.
Well, I guess we'll see when we eventually go through all these films.
Yeah.
But my current opinion of this is, eh.
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit. I liked it more than I was expecting to. There will certainly be another one. I think that's safe to say. This thing is making good money, so...
Yeah, well, so is Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah, the cream doesn't always rise to the top. Sometimes it just gets to the top by itself.
So what is your final number grade on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'd probably give it a 7. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I think it's too serious by the end, and it kind of undermines the things that it does have going for it. It's very self-aware. It's very comedic. The characters are funny and enjoyable. Some of the performances are really over the top or just flat out bad. The death scenes themselves are creative, and the way they constantly play with your expectations is really fun. But at the end of the day, it is just a bunch of disposable characters you don't care about dying one scene after the other. So it's good, but it's not great.
7 was the rating I was feeling during that 15-minute stretch where I was enjoying myself, but by the time it got to the climax, it got knocked down to a 6. I didn't hate it. I did not think it was as bad as The Monkey. I certainly did not love it, and I didn't really like it that much, but there was one really, really funny scene in this movie. Really funny.
Yeah.
That alone, I guess, made the evening kind of worth it, but I will never watch this again.
Yeah.
6 out of 10.
That's better than I thought you were going to give it, so there's something.
Yeah. So that's Final Destination Bloodlines. If you're a fan of the series, watch it. If you're a general horror fan, I don't know. I don't really think this is worth checking out.